the workshop to follow. And I can definitely recommend do it in your spare time. It will be extremely, extremely helpful. In any case, Kelvin has set up his workshop as an introduction into just some basic commands, but he will also explain to you how he has built a physical and a digital model in parallel. So how he has done a drawing of a physical model, of a model that now exists both as a physical three-dimensional object and as a digital drawing. And these steps are important because we will be asking everyone to do something similar within the first week, because when the workshop starts next week, we need everyone to have a simple digital model and a simple physical paper model. It's nothing complicated, and you don't have to design something extraordinary there. It's just a matter of having this digital model and the physical paper model in order to get quickly into the work process that the different workshops are going to take you through. So Kelvin's workshop might take an hour or a little bit longer. At 12:30, we've got Zane Eggington joining us, and Zane is the DRH technician who will explain to you how to access Rhino remotely via Flex IT. So you are able to access our computers, which have Rhino on there, and you are able to do your work remotely on our school computers through your own computer or your own laptop. And that's a simple thing to do. It will take just 5 minutes. Zane will take you through there, and I will, after that, once more summarize the first task for the week when we are starting our workshops in a week's time. Yeah, is that okay? And then I would hand over to Kelvin. And yeah, good luck with your first Rhino workshop. Kelvin, up to you.
Oh, hey. So I'm just gonna introduce you to the 5 modeling softwares first, as to why you want to use Rhino instead of other modeling softwares. So can everyone see my screen? Okay. So so the architectural process consists of 4 main stages, and for architectural school, it's mostly in the schematic design, which is what these 3 modeling softwares excel in, whereas Revit and ArchiCAD, although they are mostly used in like real architectural firms, they excel better in the design development, the construction documentation, and the administration process, which you'll probably never get to in architectural school. So I would normally just stick to these 3 softwares. But I think Rhino is one of the better ones in terms of the flexibility and like how much you can learn just from how simple it is to use in comparison to like 3ds Max and SketchUp. Also, Rhino uses NURBS, which are really good for physical modeling. So turning your digital model into a physical model, whereas like 3ds Max is better for like rendering and SketchUp is better for interior rendering. To start with the basic controls of Rhino, you may mainly use your mouse left click, right click, and scrolling. So what left click does, I'm just gonna make a few shapes first. So what left click does is that if you hold it up and then drag it across the screen from right to left, you get to select all the objects on your screen. And when you swipe from left to right, this is different because only selects all the objects within that box. So you can see that this box is not selected, whereas if I drag from the right to left, everything is selected, even if it's halfway through. And the right click is mainly used for just adjusting a view. So if I hold right click down and drag it across, it will rotate my view according to where my cursor is. And also you hold on to shift if you want to drag a pan out your screen. So these are the most basic controls if you want to just kind of wander around through your model. Scrolling is just for zoom, like every other software. So in Rhino, there are four different viewports that you start with. You can adjust this through your viewport layout. If you want to change it to 3 or 4, you can do this. You can also adjust how large you want to, whether you want to prioritize some views over others. And if you want to reset it, just type in the command box for view, and that will bring you back to the default start of Rhino. For Rhino, the display modes, there are quite a few different types. By default, they are set onto wireframe whenever you open a new application. So this lets you see like the outline of different objects. On shaded view, they become solids. You don't see through them. If you do want to see through them, you change to ghosted. And if you want to see them rendered, you use just the render display mode. These four display modes are the most useful ones, I think. I really use the ones behind these, but I'll just demonstrate what each of them does. So so X-ray is kind of the same thing as ghosted, but it's more transparent. Technical looks like this. Artistic, pen, you can see why I don't really use these. The Arctic is kind of like rendered, but it removes all lighting or textures that are applied onto a poly surface. So say I apply a material, I'll just use color red for this. It looks like red on the render display mode, but it will remove any kind of textures or lighting in it. As for ray trace, it is the better version of the rendered mode, but you would normally use this if you want to do like a really quick render. You probably wouldn't use this for like your final presentations or anything like that. But normally I just stick to the shaded viewport because it's the easiest. You also have top view. So looking at your model from the top view, front, right. If you want to change, adjust these, you can right click onto this tab and set view to say left or bottom. And also one of the important tabs on Rhino are these 5 buttons. So you have the grid snap, which lets you say, I'll just draw a line out here. It will snap onto the grid, and this will keep your model as like full numbers. So I'm just going to draw a line that is 10 boxes wide. And if I calculate the length of this will be exactly 10 millimeters, which is what the unit is set onto. If I do not turn this on, they can get up to some really crazy units. So they would, oops. This would be 9.495. So I generally advise you to keep grid snap on. Ortho just means that you would keep your cursor in like 90 degrees angles. So if I hold on to shift, this automatically turns off or on, unless I just want to click and then keep it on all the time. But normally I would keep it off and just hold shift whenever I want to draw a shape as straight. So right now I'm turning off or on with shift. And if I want to turn it off, I just don't hold it, and you can draw into draw diagonal lines. I won't explain planar, but basically you keep everything into one plane. It's better for you to just test this out. It's kind of hard to explain. And for object snap, normally if you don't turn this on, you can't say you want to apply this object on top of this. You can't really stack it onto anything unless you turn on object snap. So once you turn this on, there are a few options that come up. So this is the end, near, point, mid, center, intercept. The last four, I don't really use that often, but you can test it out if you want. So when you have end turned on, you can snap an object or anything onto the end of, say, like a poly surface or a line. These are the ends of them. Near, I generally don't recommend using near because they can get quite chaotic in terms of like a lot of problems come up when you turn up near. So I normally keep that turned off. But the other more important ones I usually tick is mid, which snaps onto the middle point between the two ends, as well as center. This only lets you select it when you have like a closed line. So if I hold it onto the boundary of this line, it would automatically snap onto the center of it. Intercept, it will snap onto the intersection between objects. This also works for poly surfaces as well as lines. So to set up the units for Rhino modeling, you go up to this cog button here. So once you click onto it, you scroll under document properties and units. This is really important for setting the scale and the units of your model. You will normally use millimeters for kind of small objects. Since you guys are creating a 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters model, I would usually just keep it to millimeters. But if you're doing like large scale buildings, maybe centimeters, and if you're doing like a city, meters would be great because it gets quite laggy the more units you have on the model. So you want to usually try to keep this as low as possible. As for grids, right now you see says it's the line count is 70, so it goes 70 across up and above. You get to change this if you want to expand it by increasing this, and the grid will increase. As well as, I think one of the more important commands for turning your physical model into a digital model is measurements. So there are 3 different measurement commands. So I'll just type this out. So these are distance, length, and angle. So what distance does is it calculates the distance between 2 points. So when you type distance in the command box, you click onto your first point for distance. I will object snap it to this end and snap to the other end. And you can see this is 109 millimeters. This is normally good, better for like straight lines, where you get from one point to another. But if you're calculating the length of like say a curved line, which you can't do for distance, with distance, you just type in the length, and this will show the length of it up above the command box. As well as angle, say you want to calculate the angle between these 2 lines. You select the start of the line, so the center between these two lines. Snap onto the end, and you start the second line, and this will give you 34 degrees. Oh, I forgot to explain Smart Track and Gumball actually. So I just quickly go over that. So what Smart Track does is when you hover your cursor over, say, this end, this white dot appears, and this will let you align anything that is like 9 degrees to it, or even continue align for you. So if you hover over this, it will let you draw something that's following the line you've already drawn. So yeah, this won't show up if you don't have Smart Track turned on. And Gumball is probably one of the most useful tab there is. So once if you don't have this turned on, when you select an object, it will just look like this. But when you have Gumball turned on, you have these arrows and these arcs, and these let you adjust, let you move these objects, and these can get quite precise. So in terms of like how you want to move them. So say you want to rotate this along this blue arc. So I want to rotate this by 45 degrees. Or say you want to move it across this way by 30 units or like 30 millimeters. You can do this. So yeah, this is just a basic introduction of Rhino, the controls and interfaces. So starting with, is anyone finding it hard to keep up? Do I need to slow down? Okay, I'll just carry on then. Okay, I'm gonna carry on then. So one of the most important shapes you start with is with curves. And the reason why you usually start off with this is because Zane will come in. So Charlie asked, do we need to get Rhino 6 or can we download 7? You would, right now I'm using Rhino 6 and I think Rhino 6 is already pretty good. Rhino 7, they added like a few more extra commands that you can do, but I don't think I will ever get to use those commands because they are quite specific. You get to make some really interesting shapes, but you probably won't ever use them. So I'll just stick to 6. And also Zane will come in at the end of the tutorial to show how you can get Rhino 6 on your computer. Yeah, so for curves, they're good for starting out with drawing out plans. So there are 7 different types of curves you can create. So starting with the top left one, this is the polyline. So when you also when you right click, you'll come up with more options, but I normally just stick to the default ones you see at the front. So with polyline, you select points and it will draw a line between them. For the control point curve, it draws a curve that follows all the points. So if I retrace this shape, it should be a lot bit more wavy, and it's you can see what this does. It doesn't draw a curve directly to each point, but it draws a curve following these control points that you set. As well as you have the circle. I'm just going to go top view so you can move around. You have the ellipse, so you get oval shapes. You have the arc, rectangles, and you also have you can create different sides of polygons. So right now the number of sides is set to 10. You can set this to like 3. So this will make a triangle. Or if you want to set this, say 20, you can also do that. If you want to repeat a command, you just also right click onto your mouse, and this will repeat the last command you've used. So say I just want to make a ton of cubes. Just right click and you can quickly recreate the last command you use without typing it every single time. As for the offset command, as for the curve commands, there are around, I think there's 7 commands that are quite useful. So these are offset, join, trim, split, rotate, scale. There are 3 types, which I'll show later. And there's also dupe edge. So what offset does is that it creates a line that is parallel to the curve you've created. So if I select this curve and offset it, you get to choose the offset distance between these 2 curves. I think normally the cap is set to none. So what happens is when you click onto it, the second line will be created and it won't be closed. It'll just be another line that's parallel to it. If you do want to close this curve for whatever reason, you would cap it and turn this to flat. Or another option is to make these round. So you can also do this. This is also great for if you're making, usually for making like the wall thicknesses of your building. So say you have this curved wall, type in offset, and you can set the distance to say 5 millimeters. I do not want this to be round, I want this to be flat. And you'll have this wall you have. Yeah, curve is just literally means line. But the reason why I say curve is because a lot of the commands you have on Rhino says it's a curve, it's not a line. So you'll see later, but there are some commands that you turn the curve into like a poly surface. And if you type in line, there's nothing will show up. The solids usually just means poly surfaces because they're made out of many surfaces altogether. But I'll explain that later on. So you also have join, trim, and split. So these are for editing lines. So say I have these 2 lines. When you use the polyline tool, it creates these different line segments and they automatically join together. So if I select onto it, all these will be connected. But say if I have 2 different lines that are drawn, these won't be connected. So if I want them to be connected, I select them all. And you can use Control J or just type in join. And these 2 will be joined together. If you want them to be trimmed, so you want to cut everything from beyond this line or this side, you have to have like a cutting object. So right now I'm using this line as like my tool to cut this line that I've joined. So what I do is you type in trim, you select your cutting object first, press enter to confirm that's your cutting object, and you select the object you want to trim. So if I click onto the left side, it'll cut everything from that side. Or if I select the right side, it'll cut everything from that side. This also works if you want to use a curve to cut a poly surface. So I'm going to use this line as my trim. You can also use Control T to trim. And if you click onto this side, it'll cut everything on here. I think it should also work in perspective mode, but I would normally keep it, if you're trying to keep it quite straight or like quite uniform, I would keep using, I would use the front or like the left, right views. But yeah, trim also works with perspective view but normally it gets quite inaccurate. So I would avoid that. You also have split, which is basically trim, but you also keep the object you've cut. So I want to use this tool to split this line. So what I do is type split. Select the object to split. This is the object I want to split. Select the cutting object. And then this object is split because of this line. So yeah, basically separates the line you have created. You also have rotate. So what that does is when you type this command, you select the center of rotation. And then you select the first reference point. And you can either just manually do this, or you can set like a really precise angle, say 30 degrees, and it will rotate your line from originally this to 30 degrees. For scale, there are 3 different types of scale commands. I'm just going to type this up. So this is just scale 1D, scale 2D, and just scale. So what the D stand for is direction. So it just means you scale in one direction or you scale in 2 directions. It will be better to show it as a polysurface example. So when you type in scale 1D, you select the object first. Scale 1D, and you select the base point. And you select this second point. And you can set the how much it extends in this certain direction. So it will follow the line you've created from the 2 reference points. So say I want to extend it out in this direction, I select this point and the second point, and I extend it out here. What scale 2D does is scales in 2 directions. I select the object to scale, enter, select the base point. I select the second point, and it expands it on 2 directions. So it is expanding on the X and Y axis. If I want to extend it out to the Z and X axis, same thing, but I'm just rotating it. Second reference point is going up. And finally, scale. It scales the object in every single direction. And yeah, so it goes along the Z axis, X axis, and Y axis. And finally, dupe edge. I think this is good for creating like just if you want to recreate the curve of a polysurface. So you have a curve that, yeah, they are quite similar to Blender, but Blender is another 3D modeling software, but it's usually designed for gaming. It's really difficult to bring a Blender model into real life because it isn't as accurate as Rhino. So normally I would just use Rhino. Yeah. So yeah, so what dupe edge does is that it copies the edge of your polysurface. So I want to copy this edge and this edge and this edge. So when I enter, it will create this curve that I'm following the edge of this object. I think for your exercise this week, you're trying to make a model saying that is within a 100mm by 100mm box. So I would set this to 100 by 100 by 100 height. And I would duplicate the edge of this. And then you have this box that you want to create a model that is within it. So yeah, this is what I think one of the uses for dupe edge, but there's a lot of things you can use it for. Okay, yeah, so that's curves. Next, I'm just going to move straight to polysurface because surfaces are almost the exact same. The reason why it's called polysurfaces is that, like I said, they're made out of many different surfaces. So it's made out of 6 surfaces, which is why it's a polysurface. It's also what Rhino uses in the commands. So if you refer like a solid to this, it won't come up. But if you refer it to as a polysurface, there will be a lot of commands that you can use with it. So for polysurfaces, there are 8 commands. So these are extrude, curve. So moving on from curve to polysurfaces, Boolean union, Boolean difference, Boolean split, loft, cap, cage edit, and pipe. I just chose I think the most useful commands out of them that I think you guys might use for your media exercises. There's a lot more, but I think there's a lot of things you can do with like just these commands. So these are just the ones I'm going to cover. So what extrude curve does is it turns your basically extrudes, it creates a polysurface out of the curve you created. So I'm going to demonstrate that with like a plan drawing. So say this is your building and I'm going to trim this. I'm going to add a I'm going to join all these together, create a wall for this. And I want to set the wall thickness to say 2 millimeters. If I use the extrude curve command, it will create a solid from your curve. It will basically follow the plane of the curve you created. Even if you rotate it, it will extrude it according to this angle. So normally I would use this for creating like the walls of your building. As for Boolean union, Boolean difference, and Boolean split, Boolean union is basically the join of polysurfaces. So what that does is I'm gonna create those there. So what Boolean union is you first type in the command first. You select all the objects you want to combine together. So right now these 2 objects are separate. You click onto these 2 objects and enter when done, and these will be combined. The problem with this command is not reversible, so I would use this really lightly. If you want to explode this again, you won't be able to recreate the shape you've had. So normally I would save multiple copies of like a model just to make sure that if I want to change anything, I can go back, because if you want to go back from Boolean union, it's going to be really difficult. For Boolean difference, I would use this to create windows or like openings in the wall or like a polysurface. There's also make hole. I'll just demonstrate Boolean difference for now because they're basically the same. They do the same thing. So what Boolean difference does is it subtracts an object using your cutting object. So I want to create a window here. Also, if you drag along these points, you can manually scale if you hold shift, or so if you hold shift, it will scale the whole thing. If you want to just move in this scale in this direction, just hold that. So I want to create a window over here. So first I click the object that I want to keep. Boolean difference, select the polysurface you want to subtract with. right now it says delete input. So once I'm finished with this command, this cutting object will be deleted. So when I press enter, this will be gone. If you want to go back, just Control Z, undo. If I want to keep the object, I just redo this and click on the delete input. So it says no, select the cutting object, enter, and you'll keep this. So what Boolean split does is some of the Boolean difference, except you also keep the object you've subtracted. So same thing as Boolean difference. Select the cutting surface, enter, and when you drag this out, this will be kept. If you don't want to keep this, just select delete input. So for loft, what this does is it creates a surface in between using the curves you have created. I'll demonstrate it with like a trapezoid. So you select all the curves you want to use loft with, type loft, and you'll see this line that comes up, and this is the surface that it'll create a surface that follows along this curve. So when you press enter, it'll create a shape like this. If you have more than 2 curves, it will also work with more than 2 curves. So right now I'm holding Alt and dragging. So what that does is just it basically copies and pastes without typing Control C and Control V. It's just slightly handier. So loft, and you'll see this line that comes up, enter. And it's kind of like the control point curves. It's basically using the lines in between as like a anchor. It won't directly create like a surface that is point to point. If you want to do that, you have to do this manually. Just loft the different curves like this. But if you select all of them, it will just create one whole surface that passes between all these curves. So you can get quite interesting. You can do quite a lot with loft. This also works with like curved objects. I'm just holding Control without typing, so I repeat the previous command. And I'll select all the objects, loft. So you can create some really interesting shapes of it. And the reason why it's Rhino is good is because if you set these control points to be exactly what you want in real life, it can get quite close to almost exactly to the real product you want. So cap comes along with loft. The reason is because when you loft an object, you'll see that it is empty. So if you want this to be closed, like this object here, you just select object and type cap, and it will close it for you. I'm not sure if this will happen to when you first start using Rhino, but for me, when I first started, when I tried to extrude curve, solid was turned off no. So which is why this also becomes empty. So I would normally just close by just typing cap, or I just, when I extrude this, make sure that I'm extruding the curve with solid turned yes. So yeah, for cage edit, this is where it gets kind of inaccurate. You're just kind of manually creating like a really organic shape. So what that does, so when you type in cage edit, you select bounding box, 3 points. Oh, sorry, not 3 points. Bounding box, C plane, and you get to control the cage parameters. So how many points I want going this way. I'll just demonstrate what it does first. So you'll see a number of points that are generated, and these let you basically, these are setting like an extra anchor for your poly surface. And when you drag these points out, it will also change the form of your object. Some of them are hidden, so I just turn them on ghosted so you can see what's inside it. But yeah, you can drag out these control points and these will manually manipulate the object you've created. So yeah, so the reason why I stopped in this part is because you can set how many control points you want. So before it was 4 by 4 by 4. Say I want to have more flexibility on the height. I would go to Z point. Oh no, Y point. Sorry. I will still 10 points, and then enter. So we'll have. Well, it just creates 10 points along the y-axis. Yeah. So yeah, you normally use K to say if you want to create like a really organic shape. As for pipe, this is for converting your curves into a pipe. So you create a line first, and when you type in pipe, you set the diameter of it. So I want this to be 10 diameters thick. And you get to set the end of it as well. So I'll set this 10 as well, and then enter, and it will create a pipe that follows along this curve. You can also set it to be different on each end. So I can set this 10 or say 30. And yeah, it doesn't work as well for straight lines. So I'll just do this with curved line. So pipe 30, 10. And yeah, it will create a pipe that follows along the curve. Is anyone confused? This is the end of the polysurface side. Right click on the curve after using loft. What do you exactly mean by that? Right click is mostly used for just adjusting your view and just panning out, or redoing the last command you used. If you want to select an object, you use left click. So I'm going to move with interaction with objects. How to push up the shape or line. I was just about to show that next, but you can also just use gumball. So just move this up by dragging onto the arrow with left click. You can try this out yourself, but it's either left click or right click. It's for 50-50. With the cube and the sphere. No, the what cat does is it's basically a shortcut for another command. I'll show you. So I'll just join all these shapes together. So you have this surface from 3 or 4 points. So it basically creates a surface along this planar. So I will pose this with manually. And this is what basically cat does. There are many tutorials on YouTube. But I'm just basically providing like an introduction to it. I don't really think you guys will all remember all this, but it'll be good to know what you can do with Rhino. So you have like some sort of reference if you want to search up for any Rhino tutorials online. Rhino isn't compulsory, but for your media course right now, it is good to use Rhino, because you guys will be transferring the Rhino model to AR or VR for those other tutorials. How do you transform an outline into a 3D shape? What exactly do you mean by that? Can you clarify? Oh, do you mean like you want to turn like a net to a 3D shape? I don't think you can do that. Yeah, Rhino is not really intuitive for this kind of thing. So you would have to manually create your model by like creating many shapes to build up on it. So as for the capping one, you can't cap this. If you try to cap this, it will just say unable to cap it. So you have to make sure your object the opening is flat. If you can't cap it, it means something has gone wrong. A lot of the times it's because you turn on near, which is why I always keep near off. So yeah, I'm gonna move with how do you interact with objects. So there are 9 commands. These are commands that I use almost every single time. And these are one of the most important commands you will use. So there's group, ungroup, remove from group, as well as lock, unlock, show, hide, move, and zoom, or just type ZS if you can't be bothered to type zoom. So for group, it is kind of self-explanatory. So it groups a bunch of objects together. So when I type in group or Control G, when you select one object, it'll select all the other objects that are grouped with it. If you want to undo this, remove from group, ungroup, and all of them would be by themselves. If you group these 2 objects first, so Control G and then Control G for this object, it will ungroup the last group that you've created. So because I grouped these 2 objects first, and then group all these 3 objects together, it will only ungroup this object. So if you want to just ungroup everything all together, just spam ungroup. If I want to be more specific in terms of why ungroup, this is useful because you have like, normally when you make a random model for your building, you would have thousands of shapes, and normally you'll group many of them together, and you want to just remove like a specific object. You select the group objects first, remove from group, and then select the group object you want to remove from it. And yeah, so this will be removed from the group. There's also lock and unlock. I use this quite a lot because the model can get quite messy sometimes. So there are some objects I never want to touch. So I just type lock or Control L, and this object will be automatically locked. So right now I cannot select this object. If I want to undo this, type unlock. The thing with unlock is once you type it, everything on your program is unlocked. So if you type lock all and you type unlock, it unlocks everything. If you just want to lock like a certain thing, just remove unlock selected. I would normally use layers too, but I'm not going to show it for this tutorial yet because there's quite a lot to go through, and layers is more of like a way to organize your stuff. So I won't show this one out, but I'm not, yeah, there's a visual cue, but I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Normally when all right, it's because I'm on ghosted. If I'm on shaded and I type lock, normally it would turn up kind of dark gray. It would look like it's kind of lifeless. It'll look like it's black. The color will become black. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing this right now. I think this might be a bug, but if you lock an object, it will turn black. These are how you interact with these different objects. Normally, I usually not use these just for just moving objects or like just for organizing them. But these commands are what I use a lot, so which is why I'm showing them now. So yeah, so there's also show and hide. So I'll type hide for this object if I don't want to see it. And if I want to show all the objects I've hidden, just type in show. There's also show selected, I think. Yeah, so it's basically like unlocked if you just want to show like a specific object instead of showing everything. Yeah, so there's also move, which I use the most. So what you do is you type in select an object, type in M, move, and you get to you snap your cursor onto like an edge of your object, and you can snap it onto another. So I use this command quite a lot instead of using Gumball. Gumball, I would just use it for like an iterative thing. Are you able to select hidden objects, or do you have to show them to move them? Yes, you have to show them to move them. But if you just want to show like a specific object and just move that specific one, you just do show selected. So for move, I think I'll actually answer all the questions towards the end of each chapter, because I think it's getting quite confusing. So yeah, so there's also, for move, there's also a vertical thing. So if you tick onto vertical yes, it will only move vertically. It might not seem really important right now, but I think I use move vertical quite a lot because sometimes I want to move an object to like a certain height, and I basically have like a ruler on the side. So I want to set this object to exactly this height. You can do that. Unless I want to set it to the second story, select this point and just move it vertically so it matches this. And finally, you have zoom, which is just ZS. So if you lose your object, if you want to zoom up close to it, type in ZS. The main reason why you want to use this is because if you zoom it out quite far, your scrolling becomes really slow. And you want to reset that by just typing ZS to zoom back onto the object. Okay, so yeah, that's the end for interacting with objects. I think I'm gonna get into how you translate a physical model into a digital model. But does anyone have any questions? Can you each snap to a locked object? No. Locked objects, but just you can't select them at all. You can still see them, but you you won't be able to interact with it. So as I was saying, for translating your physical model to digital, I've created I'll just answer these questions first. When do we find out our tasks for the week? I'm not too sure, but I was told that you guys can either turn a physical model to a digital model or a digital model to a physical one. It's because if you want to turn a digital to a physical, you will need like a printer or some sort, or like a laser cutter, which we were assuming that not everyone would have. So, which is why I'm providing like a demonstration for both turning a digital to physical and a physical to digital model. Yeah. When the object is hidden, how do you find out when there's a lot of objects on the screen? When there's you can just type show selected. I'm just gonna make this kind of confusing. I'm using array to just copy. Oh wait. So I'll just show a quick demonstration. Yeah, came this way, came this way, came this way, and oh, that's not working. Okay. So say I have all this. Okay, that's too much. So what you asked was how worrying? It is not worrying that you didn't retain anything I said, because it took me like 3 Rhino tutorials to actually understand it. One basically showing is how, the different things you can do. So you, in the back of your mind, you know what you can create with Rhino, and you can search it up on Rhino tutorials. I don't expect everyone to remember everything I've gone through. But it's good to have like an introduction to know what you can do with it. The object is, and how do you find when there's a lot of objects on the screen? So say I have this much that is hidden. Enter. I just want to show like a selected bit. Show selected. And you can choose what you want to bring up back to the what you can see. So I want to show this object and this object, and these 2 objects will come back out. Yeah. Yeah, Zachary is right. I'm just here for the Rhino tutorial. Do we use V-Ray to render our model? I'm not gonna go through V-Ray today. But I'm not sure you guys will need to use it, because you guys are gonna go straight to AR or VR. So I wouldn't worry about V-Ray for now. For the task, can we design anything? I'm not too sure, sorry. Anyway, from physical model to digital model, I've created a model myself. That's really simple. So what you want to do if you have a physical model is you want to keep all the measurements you have. I'm not sure everyone can see the model, but I've just started with some really basic shapes that I've made with card. So I've taken a picture of it to use as reference. So I think this is the one. So this is the model I've created. I've kept down all the measurements. So this is basically like a demonstration of what to do if you want to bring a physical model back to your digital model. I've kept it quite simple with what I'm showing, because I just want to keep the time quite short. But with the commands I've shown you, you can do a lot more interesting stuff than what I've done here. So the base is 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters, and the height is 10 millimeters. Actually, I think the best way to start with this is to set the base, draw the curve with the base, and also draw the building footprints. So 100 by 100. So you type in 100 units by 100 units, because the units are set to millimeters. So right now you're working on a 1-to-1 scale of your physical model. And then you have your building footprint, which is 30 by 30, as well as this trapezoid, which is 20 by 20. And they align 10, they are 10 millimeters off the edges. Well, this one is 10 millimeters off the edges. So I'm going to draw a shape 30 by 30. Select this curve, type N to move it, snap onto its end edge. And I'm just going to gumball it. So to move it 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters off the edge. So 10. And because this arrow is facing up, I want it to go down. So instead of typing 10, I type -10. I'm going to do the same thing for the other footprints. You can just type straight -20 by -20. So it draws along this side instead of this side. And I'll -10 and -10. As for the pool I've created here, it is -30 by 30. I'm going to move it up by 10 and move it back by 10. So yeah, this is the basic footprint of this model. So how I turn this into a poly surface is I extrude the curve, and the height of this is 10 millimeters. I want to make sure that the solid is turned on yes. So I will type in 10. You can adjust whether it extrudes up or down by just changing your cursor. So I'm just dragging it up, or extrude it up here. But I want to extrude it down here, so I'll just type in 10 and make sure that it's pointing down. I will start with the small house I have there, which is 30 by 30. I think the easiest way to do this sometimes is better to make the cross section. So this shape here. So it is 30 by 20, and from the center it is 9 millimeters high. So 30 by 20. And from the middle point, I will turn on midpoint. I will draw like something I will as like a reference line. So this will be 9 millimeters. And I'll move to the top view. I'm going to draw this this line that connects it. And I want to remove all these lines in the middle, because if this is like a cross section of this building here, I'm going to have them trim and remove all those lines. Since these lines aren't connected, you connect them by using join. I'm going to place it back onto this building footprint. So type in move, snap it onto this angle. You can use rotate, but I just find it easier to just use gumball and just move it again. Once I'm done, I extrude it so it matches the building footprint here. And it's 30 by 30. As for the trapezoid, it is 50 millimeters off from the top. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this. Control C and Control V, move it up by 50 units. And I'm gonna, right now the distance between each of these points is 20. So it is 2 times smaller for the top than the bottom. So I'm gonna scale this from the center point. I think will be the easiest. Actually, I'm just gonna scale it. So it's 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters. I'm gonna move it. I want to make sure that the center of this aligns to the center of this. I'm just gonna turn off mid and all those points for now, and I'll turn on center object snap. So I'll snap onto the center of this curve to the center of this curve, and then move it up by 50. Once I'm done, I will use loft to create a surface between these two curves. Enter. And then I will select the surface. Since it's empty, I will cap it. And finally, for the pool, I'm just using Boolean difference. This is 5 millimeters inside, so extrude the curve down by 5. So I select the object I want to keep, type in Boolean difference, select the object I want to subtract with, and I do not want to keep the input object. And you have this model done. This is going to be uploaded as a recording. Yes, this is. What type of materials do you use for the physical model? I use just paper from the sketch pad. I tried using just normal pinning paper, but it was too flimsy and it didn't hold up. So I redid the model. Could you do the demonstration a little slower? I should have listened. I should have saw that at the start. But what I've demonstrated is basically all the commands I've shown here. So what I started with is just to draw the outline of the curves. So using these curve tools, drawing the Boolean footprints, and then I moved them into place by using Gumball. So when I select an object, these arrows will show up. So I moved it with that. And then I basically created the curve cross section for this polysurface and then extruded it out. I'm not sure. You'll have to ask where he recorded this. And I use loft for this object because I want to create a surface that intersects these two curves. I also scaled this curve so it is 2 times smaller than this, so it's 10 millimeters across this side. So using distance to measure, make sure that the measurements are correct, which is why these commands are quite important to make sure that your digital model matches your physical ones. How do you create a surface with certain values using command again? Like how do you create a cross section without drawing using the tool? Can you elaborate on that? How do you create a surface with a certain value? That's what you mean. Yeah, you just type the numbers straight in. Sometimes you get brought up with multiple options. You just have to manually select. So I think this is in pipe. You can see this in pipe. So when I type in pipe, I want to make sure that I guess not actually, but sometimes you need to manually click what you want to adjust. So for the radius, I want to click onto this and then type the number in. If you just want to use the cuboid, a box, you have to start with a base point first, and you type in the first unit. So it always goes along the red axis first. So I want it to be 50 units, so I type in 50 first, and then it moves along this way. So I type 50, and I type 50 here. So you don't need to press anything, you just type the numbers in. You basically follow the instructions that you see along this command box. How do you snap the cross section of the house into its spot it's meant to sit? A lot of the times why you use curves is because you use them as like a sort of guiding tool. So I basically just type move, make sure my cursor is on the end, and the end tab pops up. You click onto that corner and I snap it on this corner. So this is basically like a ruler for me. I want to know exactly how much I extrude it. So when I extrude this curve, I click onto the point I want to end and it's done. Do you guys have any more questions? Because I'm going to move on to how you turn your model into a drawing. Actually, I think I'll move on to that at the end because I'll show how to move from a digital model to a physical model first. So say I don't have this as a guide. Say I only have this model right here. you want to create a net of your object. So this is when you don't want a Boolean difference every single object, because if you do, you Boolean union, the command I'm going to show you is called unroll surface. So this is really useful for like turning your model into like setting your file for like laser cut for like printing. So what it basically does is that it unrolls it and creates a net for it. So the reason why you don't want to use Boolean union, you just want to keep it separate, is when you unroll surface, by default it says yes, but make sure this is turned on though. I'll show you why later. But if it becomes all Boolean union, it becomes quite chaotic. It will be better to explode them in like separate elements. Yeah, so basically what unroll surface does is that it explodes all your objects and then lays them down flat. So yeah, it's a much more handy way of doing it. So when you unroll surface and exploded is on no, it'll create like a net for this object. And when you don't have exploded, when you have exploded turned on, it will just be in individual pieces. So you would have to manually move them around. Even though this net is not quite as accurate, I would probably manually redo this. Oh, I think I forgot to cover explode. So once you've created your net, you want to explode it. So what I'm showing you is how you create like a net for it so you can turn your digital to a physical model or like a cardboard model, just for this example. So these are all joined together. It's a poly surface. So you want to explode these so it becomes into 7 surfaces. And I want to rotate this so it better fits onto my page. I'm going to move this and snap this corner to this corner, rotate it so it snaps into the end here. And I'm basically just going to adjust how each of these are oriented. So the reason why I keep exploded turned on off is to make sure that the pieces are exactly where it should be. Whereas if they're exploded, it's kind of all over the place. You don't know which piece sticks to which. So you basically do this for all the shapes, all the whole model here. Exploded, yes. You'll need to move this unroll surface. And you end up having like a bunch of pieces together. Yes, these are all turned on, yes. But yeah, you end up having like a bunch of pieces that you'll have to stick together and then piece it so it fits within like an A4 page. And how you do that is you first make sure that you first type in the dimensions of, say, you're printing on an A4 page. I think that's like 297 by 291. No, that doesn't look right. But to say this is like an A4 page. So you want to manually place it in and make sure it fits inside the page, which is why you sometimes have to move some pieces around. Yeah, you explode to make sure that 4020 by 297. Scale 1T to adjust this height because I just typed this by random. So as you can see, this model is actually quite small. There's nothing wrong with what I've had here. Is that A3? Oh, right, it's 210. Right. 210. I'm assuming everyone at home has like an A4 printer, if you do have a printer. And yeah, because I accidentally turned exploded on, I'm just going to demonstrate with that exploded turned off. So I will place this net onto here. I will redo the command, just right click. And for this one, right click to repeat that command. And yeah, you can see that some of these surfaces are clipped onto each other, which is why you need to explode them and sort of move them to a better place so it doesn't clip. Yeah, so you bring them out. You might want to readjust the net to make sure it fits, or like you can actually model it properly. But for now, let's just say I have these pieces that I want to print out. Yeah, you need one. You can't go back to uni for now. So yeah, so since these are surfaces, you need to find a way to turn them into curves. And the command for this, also it's good for you'll learn for making drawings, is called make 2D. This is the most important command you'll use for when you want to turn your physical models into drawings or any sort of fabrication process. So what that does is you first select the objects you want to draw a line out of, and you type make 2D. The view right now is set to the view you're currently on, and that will be highlighted with a blue tint. You can change that just by clicking onto it. So make 2D. Right now it's on top view. I wouldn't worry about these settings for now, as long as you don't turn on hidden edit lines or these other free lines, it should be fine. So yeah, so another reason why to explode them is because these right now are all joined together. So explode them first, then make 2D. And then you have like a net of this. Is there a way to make a shape from the net? So the opposite way. No, there isn't a way. So yeah, from here, I think the best program to move on from Rhino is to like a drawing is probably Illustrator. We were just sent an email yesterday so that you can get Illustrator for free for now. So what you want to do is you select your object, go onto File. Oh, these are the save buttons, but I'm not going to bother showing them for now. So you export selected here. This tab will come up. I'll choose where I'll just save on to downloads. Make sure the file type is an AI, so Adobe Illustrator. Some random name. Preserve model scale, because you've worked your model as a one-to-one model. This is why you're setting. You make sure your units are correct. It's important, and make sure the scale is 1-to-1. You don't have to adjust this. But if you want to shrink it, and you want to make it to 1-to-10, just type 10. Or smaller 0.1. But since this is 1-to-1, I just preserve the model scale 1-to-1 and press OK. I'll go on to Illustrator right now. So go on to File, Open. On Downloads, open the file you just exported. I think this is coming from Office. Yeah, okay. It's because I didn't. Sometimes if your model is too far out from this line, what basically does it, Illustrator will keep the location of where your drawing is. Sometimes your drawing is out over here. You will never find it on your Illustrator file. If that happens, you just make sure you are, sorry about that. Sometimes your because the drawing is right over here, it placed the drawing exactly where it is on the Illustrator page. And you want to make sure it's as close to the 0, as possible. When you make 2D and export it as an Illustrator file, sometimes you won't see where you can't find it on the Illustrator file. It's because it's beyond this line and nothing will show up beyond this box here. So you want to make sure it is move back to the 0, 0 line. So move 0, 0, and this point will be at 0, 0. But I'm lucky that I didn't move it too far. So I'm just going to move it into this box here. So yeah, you have your net here. So yeah, this is what basically you're gonna print out. You can change the thickness of this to like 0.2 thickness and just print this out, and you have all the net done. I think yeah, Illustrator is probably one of the best programs to use to export from Rhino to other software. So because you move from Rhino to Illustrator, you can also move. You can save this as like a JPEG or move on to jokes. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you select your object, change the stroke thickness of this 0.5. What I showed before was you want to move this back to the middle. Make sure it's inside the page. So yeah, the reason why you want to use Illustrator is because you get to convert this file into like a JPEG or like a PNG or anything else. So the Illustrator is definitely like a program I use a lot when you're using Rhino. So this is what you have. You can move it to Photoshop if you have like a render or like a plan. So yeah, that's it for turning a digital model into a physical model. There are other ways, but for like using laser cut, but I think there will be another tutorial coming up. Maybe not for media, but there will be like a DRH tutorial for how you how do you set up for laser cut. I think there's also one online, but I wouldn't worry about that for now. So moving back to Rhino, I'm gonna go through how you turn your model into a drawing. I don't think it's important for you to go through, for you to use it for media so far, but it will definitely be useful if you're using Rhino for design. So I'm just gonna start with you. So say you're asked to do a plan drawing, an elevation drawing, a section drawing, and a perspective or like a render, and you want an outline for that render. So for your plan, you would go into top view. I'll just move to shaders to see it more clearly. You select your objects, make 2D, and this will be, you'll create a line that follows this. So this is your plan drawing for it. As for your elevations, you go into your front or left view, depending on what you want to make an elevation drawing of. So when you make 2D, it's quite, you just need to type it in, just enter, and everything's basically done for you. When you make 2D, it also automatically puts onto like a separate layer. So make a new layer called make 2D. And yeah, you can just hide all this if you want. And I want to make a drawing from this side of this side. So yeah, this is how you make just plans and elevation drawings. I assume all our designs will need to be made with cardboard because we're not going to uni yet. Yes, I assume that as well. Could you do that again, please? So okay, I'll just redo the plan drawing. But it's basically you're making an outline of the view you set. So if I go to top view and I select object I want to make 2D, it will draw everything from what you're looking at right now. And I'll just make a drawing of that. If I go onto front view and I make 2D for this, select all your objects, make 2D. Right now the view is set to front because you've gone through this view. Okay, and you'll have this drawing created. So there's nothing too complex about this. And so yeah, as for sections, since these are volumes, I think I'll create a shape better for it, something with more thickness. I'm just gonna make this hollow inside. So now you have a thickness for this wall. I want to move it back, move vertical, bring it back down. So to make a section, there's another command you need to know, and that is called clipping plane. Clipping plane. So what that does is when you type this in, you create a surface. And what that does, it removes everything you see along this blue arrow. So if I drag it across up and down, you can see that it will basically hide everything above this plane. So if I drag this down, you'll see it basically slices everything. 50 on clay, I'm just going to use scrap fabric. Okay. Anyway, to make a section drawing, I guess this is also useful if you want to make a plan drawing. But I'm just going to show a section for now. But if I want to cut into this part of your model, I drag the clipping plane onto this side. So you see this is hollowed out. But the problem with clipping plane is that you can see that it's cut out here, but it's not cut out here. And that's because the properties aren't set properly. So you want to go onto the properties bar, which is this rainbow circle here. And you go onto clipping plane, which is this icon. So right now, it's only ticked for perspective. So if you untick it, clipping plane won't work on this view. If I want to have it work for the top view, I just tick that. Yeah, so right now I want to make a section drawing, and that will be useful to use the front view. So I'm going to take the front view for it. So now you can see it's actually cut out. So I select everything. Don't have the clipping plane. Oh, that's why you use control. If you want to deselect an object, you use control and you just click the object you want to deselect. Sorry, I should have put that since the start. Yeah, select everything, deselect using control, make 2D. And clipping plane in sections is ticked. So that will mean that anything that's cut by the clipping plane will show up in an outline. And because clipping plane is shown is ticked on the top view, which is why you probably don't see a line right now. But if you drag this back, you'll see this. So this is like a basic introduction for how you use to make 2D and clipping plane to make a drawing. And a lot of the times make 2D becomes kind of messy. So what you want to do is you need to clean it up by just using trim or like just join, just to clean up some lines. So I'll just want to remove this line and this line so that this is all one section. As for the renders, like I said, for Make2D, it copies exactly what you have from that view. So I want this view, I want an outline of this. Select everything, make 2D. Enter, okay. And it'll create an outline of it. I think it will be good to also know this command called name view, and that saves the view you have if you want to keep that view and you want to go back to it. So when you type name view, you first set the view you want. I want to keep this view. You just press onto the save as button, set the name of this view, okay. And if you move around and you want to go back to that view you've saved, you go back to here. This is good because say you're using like a rendering program, or you've kept so many different views and you want to keep track of what you have done, or sometimes when you render something and you want an outline of it, you want to make sure that it's exactly aligned. So it'll be good to always keep track of what view you've saved so that the line matches the render you've produced. What's the command main view? Oh, I wrote it down at the bottom left. So yeah, just keep track of all these commands. And you can, since you'll download it probably tonight, Zane will teach it to you. You can just play around and try these commands out yourself. Yeah, I think that's it. We're done here. I think I'm supposed to wait for Uwe to come back though. I think, yeah, we're just gonna have to wait for him to come back. To see section view, you want to use clipping plane. So that creates a plane for you to cut, create a plane where you don't, where everything is beyond like the arrow is removed. Yeah, it's still recording. I'm just gonna pause it.